Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, left over 14,000 spiritual readings that continue to cause astonishment. Among them, one of the most enigmatic speaks of the true origin of Jesus' soul. For Cayce, Jesus was not just an enlightened man, but an ancient consciousness that passed through several incarnations before his final mission. He lived as Enoch, Melchizedek, Hermes, and even Adam. But the most shocking thing was not the multiplicity of lives, but the idea that his soul did not belong to earth. Cayce suggested that Jesus was not a soul created according to the common human mold. His spirit came from higher spheres, from planes where light and truth had already conquered ego and ignorance. This assertion sparked debate among theologians and spiritualists, as it positions Jesus as an interdimensional entity. Jesus' incarnation, then, would be a divine concession, almost as if a being from another universe submitted to the rules of human flesh. For many, this would explain his innate wisdom from childhood. It wasn't learning, it was memory. This perspective transforms the way many view the birth of the Messiah. Jesus didn't begin in Bethlehem, nor even in Mary's womb. He already walked between worlds, even before the creation of Earth as we know it. Cayce claimed that he accepted incarnation on planet Earth to rebalance the spiritual vibration of humans. Like a spiritual doctor from outside, Jesus came to heal a collective illness that not even previous prophets could contain. His coming was not just prophetic, it was cosmic. Cayce's purpose in revealing this was not to create controversy, but to awaken a new perspective on Christ. For him, recognizing that Jesus came from a higher plane helps us understand the magnitude of the sacrifice it took to leave perfection, to immerse ourselves in human pain. A celestial being who became flesh, experiencing Earth's anguish firsthand, out of love. This completely changes the way we view the gospel. He wasn't from here, and yet he chose us. Cayce's messages challenge traditional theology, but offer a bridge between faith and universal mysticism. If we accept that Jesus came from outside, from another dimension or world, then his every gesture on earth takes on new meaning. He was a stranger among us, trying to remind us who we truly are. The love he preached was not human, it was cosmic, and that's why so many misunderstood him. Cayce's vision opens the door to a profound question. Was Jesus, in fact, never one of us? Or have we forgotten that we too came from the same light, but lost our way? The answer lies not only in sacred books, but in the silent awakening of the soul that begins to remember where it came from. Among Edgar Cayce's most impressive revelations is the information he accessed through the so-called Akashic records. According to Cayce, these records are like a divine library, where all the actions, thoughts, and experiences of every soul since the beginning of time are recorded. It was through this subtle field that he understood the trajectory of Jesus' soul, and what he discovered shocked even the most experienced spiritualists. Jesus' soul did not originate on earth. According to Cayce's readings, Jesus belonged to a spiritual order that transcends duality and linear time. He came from a plane or world where Christ consciousness was already fully realized. This place was described not with physical coordinates, but with spiritual frequencies, as if it were a planet of light. It was a sphere so elevated that the very concepts of sin and pain no longer existed. Jesus reportedly agreed to descend into these spheres, renouncing his original glory, to assist a slumbering humanity. This very different origin would explain Jesus' unique behavior from childhood. Cayce reported that this soul had already overcome the common cycles of suffering. He no longer needed to incarnate, but chose to do so. And this reveals a love that goes beyond human comprehension. He came not only to teach, but to serve as an example of cosmic sacrifice. Jesus' incarnation was a multidimensional event with effects on multiple layers of existence. In describing this journey of Jesus' soul, Cayce warned that humanity would not understand its mission if it remained trapped in a literal and limited vision. We must learn to see beyond the flesh, beyond the cross, beyond religion. Jesus was not just a first-century Jew. He was, in essence, an interstellar messenger of light, sent to remind us that we are children of the same Father. And if he came from another realm, perhaps we are all far from home too. The Akashic records therefore not only reveal the past, but also destiny. Jesus' soul carried within it the map for the return to divine origin. Cayce asserted that studying this trajectory helps us understand our own path of spiritual ascension. Jesus was not an exception, but a model. and the planet from which he came may be the same one to which our souls will one day return when we are ready. This revelation transforms the narrative of Jesus into something far greater than any religion has ever dared to propose. If he came from another world, then his presence here was an intergalactic event, not just a spiritual one. And in this scenario, we are not just sinners seeking salvation, but travelers of the cosmos trying to remember who we are. Jesus, then, would be our guide back home. If Jesus came from a higher realm, the inevitable question is, why did he choose to incarnate here, on a planet marked by war, pain, and spiritual ignorance? Edgar Cayce provides us with a crucial clue. He asserted that Earth had become, over time, one of the most critical points in the spiritual universe, a place where conflicting souls were trapped in cycles of suffering. Jesus' arrival, then, would be a special mission to reverse this vibrational collapse. Jesus would have willingly accepted this task, knowing the risks and emotional intensity he would face upon becoming human. Cayce said his mission was not just to teach with words, but to transmute planetary energy with his very presence. As an ambassador from another reality, Jesus descended to the densest plane of matter to bring a code of light. Every gesture, every miracle, every silence, all were part of this greater plan. Jesus' mission was to restore the bridge between humanity and its divine origin. This could not be done from the outside. He had to come and live among humanity. He had to cry with them, bleed with them, and feel their loneliness. Only then could he connect with the pains of Earth and give them new meaning. Cayce believed this was the only way to heal from the inside out. The mission, though extraterrestrial in origin, required a complete immersion in the human condition. Many don't understand this choice. After all, why would a being of light submit to the suffering of the cross? But it is precisely in this mystery that the greatness of the mission lies. Jesus didn't come to parade himself as a god. He came to show that even the stars can stoop to embrace the mud without losing their brilliance. This is unconditional love in its purest form. Cayce suggested that Jesus' birth was carefully planned by higher consciousnesses. Every detail, from the Star of Bethlehem to the moment of his death, was part of a cosmic alignment. The mission was not local, it was universal. Jesus came to represent the hope of many worlds, and Earth was the chosen stage for the grand experiment of spiritual redemption. Therefore, Jesus' incarnation was not a coincidence, nor a simple fulfillment of prophecy. It was the entry of an extraterrestrial soul onto a planet in crisis. And even though he was an outsider, he became one of us. By choice, by love, by mission. Before being known as Jesus of Nazareth, this soul had lived through multiple experiences on Earth, according to Edgar Cayce. In his readings, Cayce pointed out that the Spirit of Christ incarnated numerous times throughout human history. Among these incarnations were names such as Enoch, Melchizedek, Hermes Trismegistus, and Joseph of Egypt. Each life, according to him, was a preparation, a stepping stone to the final mission. They were not merely wise men. They were partial manifestations of a consciousness approaching fullness. These previous lives are not described in the traditional Gospels, but appear as fragments in occult and esoteric traditions. For Cayce, Jesus himself participated in the formation of cultures, religions, and philosophies long before Christianity. He helped build temples, reveal divine sciences, and teach the mysteries of the soul in forgotten languages. And he always returned to the invisible, awaiting the right moment for his final incarnation. This would explain his wisdom so early in childhood, as recounted in the Gospels. By saying that Jesus lived before Nazareth, Cayce was not seeking to diminish his importance but to amplify it. He saw Christ as a millennia-old spiritual project, who underwent numerous trials to reach the point of fusion with the divine. The birth in Bethlehem, therefore, was the culmination of a long cycle. The child in the manger was the final seed of a tree that had already borne fruit for many ages. His human identity was merely the shell. The real fruit was the divine consciousness he already bore. These revelations challenge the traditional narrative and invite an expansion of consciousness. They tell us that Jesus did not arise from nothing. He was forged in time, shaped by pain, molded by light. His soul already knew the ways of the world but chose to return again and again until his mission was complete. Cayce saw this as proof of constant love, not a divine imposition. It was as if Christ himself accepted suffering as part of his pact with humanity. By considering these multiple lives, we understand that Jesus was not just a figure from a single time. He was the link in a spiritual chain that spans eras and continents. Every civilization received a seed from him. Every culture has preserved a fragment of his essence. Jesus' mission did not begin on the cross, nor did it end with the resurrection. It was built brick by brick, silently, through the ages. This hidden truth can provoke resistance, but it also heals. Realizing that Christ has walked among us for millennia, we realize that the plan of salvation is not a recent idea. It is an eternal calling, a calling that permeates our lives and invites us today to awaken. Edgar Cayce went further, stating that Jesus did not share the same spiritual makeup as most humans. According to him, while our souls still struggle with desires and shadows, Christ's soul had already reached a state of absolute purity. It was as if Jesus were of a different spiritual species, a traveler from higher planes who had to adapt to Earth's density. This is why he was so misunderstood. He didn't speak like men, didn't react like men, didn't live like men. This feeling of misfit can be seen in several passages of the Gospel. Jesus wept, but not for himself. He suffered, but did not complain. He forgave even before being offended. His actions were not born of human logic, but of a vibration that transcended the ego. Cayce explained that this occurred because Jesus maintained a living connection with his cosmic origin. He never disconnected from the source. It was as if he had two bodies, one visible, human, and one invisible, of pure light. This distinct spiritual structure caused Jesus to emit an energy that healed with his mere presence. People felt his vibration and burst into tears, or felt liberated from centuries of suffering. Cayce called this the Christ aura. It was as if his presence reconfigured the vibrational field of everything around him. Such a soul, Cayce said, could not have originated on Earth. It was impossible. It was something that transcended even the angels. To say that he was never one of us is not to deny his humanity. It is to acknowledge that his essence transcended the limits of flesh. Jesus took on human form, but not the karmic burden we all carry. He was born without spiritual debt, because his soul had already been redeemed long before. This made him a stranger among men, a foreigner of light in the midst of a dark world, and yet he chose to love each one as if they were brothers. Cayce saw this difference as a gift, not a barrier. Jesus didn't come to humiliate us with his perfection, but to show us the way back. He was different because he had to be. He had to be the beacon that never dims in the midst of the storm, the only one who could cross death and return intact, the only one who could offer redemption without judgment. This spiritual difference was his gift, and also his cross. As we understand this truth, a new vision opens up. Jesus didn't come to make us feel inferior, but to remind us of what we can become. He wasn't from here, but he came for us, and he left a trail of light on the path, so that one day we too can return home. Many spiritualists, along with Edgar Cayce's visions, associate the origin of Jesus' soul with star systems such as the Pleiades or Sirius. Although Cayce never explicitly named these constellations, his description of a plane of pure, radiant existence echoes what other traditions call cities of starlight. For some, this suggests that Christ could be an emissary from these cosmic regions, a being sent from afar to plant seeds of wisdom on Earth. These connections are more than fantasy. They appear in ancient civilizations such as the Egyptians, the Mayans, and even the Dogons of Africa. All of them report contact with celestial beings from Sirius or the Pleiades. Interestingly, many of these cultures also foretold the coming of a sun man, a master of light. Cayce did not reject these traditions. On the contrary, he believed that Christ was a universal synthesis of the promises made in every corner of the planet, a traveler of the cosmos. The connection to these star systems can be understood symbolically or literally. Spiritually, the Pleiades represent a high point of consciousness, where love and wisdom have already been integrated. Sirius, in turn, is linked to the energy of enlightenment and rebirth. If Jesus came from one of these points, whether as a soul or as energy, then his mission on Earth was supported by intelligences much broader than we can imagine. He was sent, but also accompanied. Cayce spoke of the great cosmic brotherhood, an alliance of enlightened beings working for the evolution of planets in vibrational decline. Jesus would be the ultimate representative of this brotherhood, the only one capable of fully incarnating on the physical plane without becoming corrupted. The connection with these star systems serves to illustrate the dimension of the spiritual project in which Jesus was involved. It was not an earthly mission. It was a cosmic plan of planetary restoration. Jesus' presence, then, may have been a response to a call from Earth, as if the planet had emitted a silent cry that crossed galaxies. And from above, from the light, someone heard it and decided to come. He was not of flesh, but he accepted flesh. He was not of pain, but he embraced pain. And he brought with him a love that neither time nor space can explain. This stellar gaze does not weaken the Christian faith. On the contrary, it expands it. It reveals that Jesus is not just the savior of a people, but the cosmic brother of all races in the universe. And it invites us to look to the heavens not as an escape, but as a reminder that our origin lies beyond the stars. According to Edgar Cayce, Jesus' body was unlike that of an ordinary man. Although born of Mary, he possessed a unique spiritual structure that constantly connected him to the divine. Cayce suggested that Jesus operated through a body of light, a vibrational field above dense matter, capable of manipulating energies, healing wounds, and even transmuting elements. It was a body shaped to be the temple of a fully awakened soul, a conscious receptacle of God's presence. This idea is echoed in several passages of the Gospel. After his resurrection, Jesus appears and disappears in different places, passes through closed doors, and is confused by his disciples. This indicates that his body no longer followed the laws of ordinary matter. Cayce saw this not as an isolated miracle, but as a natural expression of a being who mastered the physical, astral, and spiritual planes simultaneously. Jesus was no longer limited by densities. Even before the resurrection, his biology revealed unusual traits. He resisted sleep, fasted for 40 days, healed with touch, and could read human hearts. This indicated something more than flesh was at work. Cayce argued that his body was a hybrid, part human, part celestial, a living intermediary between heaven and earth. This condition allowed him to endure levels of suffering that would destroy any other human being. This hybrid composition didn't make him superior, it made him necessary. Jesus needed a body strong enough to bear the weight of the world, yet subtle enough to channel the light from above. Cayce saw this as a hidden miracle, the body that housed the purest soul in the universe, a body made to be broken and then glorified. It wasn't just flesh, it was promise materialized. This nature also explains why Jesus was a spiritual magnet. Wherever he went, crowds followed him without understanding why. The vibration of his body resonated with the most suffering hearts. It was as if his very existence called souls back home. He healed without speaking. He touched without touching. He was a living light. Cayce called this his messianic presence. By understanding Jesus as a hybrid being, we transcend the vision of a martyr and see him as a master of matter. He didn't come just to suffer. He came to show that the body is a bridge, not a prison, and that when the soul is ignited, even the body is transformed into light. Within Edgar Cayce's revelations, there is a suggestion that Jesus did not come alone. He was the first in a line of souls who, on some level, did not originally belong to Earth. Cayce spoke of missionary souls, spirits who come from higher planes with the purpose of accelerating humanity's awakening. Jesus would be the ultimate archetype of these beings, a model, a beacon, and also an elder brother for those who would come later, a kind of first emissary of a cosmic brotherhood of light. This idea appears in other spiritual traditions which speak of so-called star children, star seeds, or cosmic souls. These would be human beings with a spiritual origin beyond Earth, carrying within them an ancestral memory of other worlds. Jesus would have opened the energetic pathway so that these beings could be born more frequently among us. The crucifixion was more than a sacrifice. It broke a vibrational barrier between worlds. Cayce pointed out that after Jesus' mission, Earth's spiritual field was forever altered. It became easier to access higher planes, understand the divine, and develop spiritual gifts. This would explain the growing number of people born with extreme sensitivity, strong intuitions, and dreams of stars and spaceships. These are echoes of the seed planted by Jesus. He didn't just come to save, he came to sow. This spiritual lineage isn't about blood, surname, or religion. It's a frequency, a calling. People who feel like they never belonged here may actually be responding to this silent call. Cayce said that Jesus' spiritual descendants wouldn't be recognized by titles, but by the light in their eyes. They would be those who awaken love where there was once fear, who kindle peace where there was once chaos. Christ was not just a historical event, he was a vibration introduced into the fabric of human reality. And this vibration continues to resonate in every being who chooses to live with compassion, truth, and spiritual courage. Cayce believed that in time, these children of the stars would recognize one another, and together, they would continue the invisible work of Jesus. A work that cannot be seen with the eyes but felt with the soul. Accepting that Jesus was the first of many is understanding that spirituality doesn't end with him. It begins with him. It's accepting that heaven still sends messengers, and that perhaps without knowing it, you are one of them. The divine lineage is active, and the call to remember who we are continues to echo in the silence of our hearts. From the very first steps of his mission, Jesus aroused strangeness in the religious and political authorities of his time. Cayce asserted that this discomfort stemmed not only from his words, but from his energy. People sensed there was something different about him, something that shattered structures, challenged dogma, and threatened the status of those who fed on collective fear. His enemies feared him not because he spoke, but because he vibrated. He didn't need to attack to disturb. His presence alone was a spiritual earthquake. According to Cayce, the religious leaders of the time sensed that Jesus was unusual. They knew he couldn't be manipulated, and this terrified them. He read the deepest intentions. He dispelled lies with silence. He broke traditions without shouting. For these leaders, Jesus represented the end of a world of guilt-based control, and when a truth cannot be silenced, the system tries to eliminate it. That's why he was rejected, hunted, and crucified. But Cayce also saw in this a hidden prophecy. The earthly world, dominated by forces that feed on ignorance, would always resist the arrival of the light. Jesus was the total light, and so he was treated as a threat. His enemies didn't see him just as a man. They saw him as a reflection of what they could never be, and this reflection hurt more than any accusation. Even his closest disciples struggled to understand him. It wasn't just his language, it was his being. Cayce said Jesus spoke from the heart of another world. His gestures came from another logic. Most weren't ready for this. Many followed him miraculously, but they didn't understand his essence. When they realized he wasn't going to liberate the earth with swords, many turned away. He didn't meet human expectations. He was an emissary of eternity. Jesus' rejection, then, was not just a historical act. It was the shadow's reaction to the light. Cayce explained that this is still the case today. Whenever someone awakens and tries to live truthfully, the world reacts with hostility. Christ was the first to feel this acutely, but he did not back down, because he knew that even though he was rejected by men, he was in communion with heaven. This part of the story teaches us that light is disturbing, but it also transforms, and that perhaps, if you've ever felt rejected for being different, you're simply following in the footsteps of the one who was never one of us but chose to walk with us. If Jesus' soul truly came from another planet or cosmic plane, as Edgar Cayce suggested, then his return would not only be a mystical event, but also an interdimensional return. Cayce asserted that the second coming of Christ would not be exactly as many imagine, a man on clouds, but rather a reactivation of the Christ consciousness within every awakened human being. Still, he left room for the possibility of a visible manifestation, something that would unite spirit and matter, heaven and earth, once again. Cayce explained that the energy of Christ remains alive on the planet, but that his physical return would only occur when the earth's vibration was ready. It would be pointless to repeat the drama of the crucifixion in a world still blind. Therefore, Christ would only return when he found hearts ready to receive him, and not with swords but with silence and love. The question remains, are we ready? Or would we still reject the one who is not one of us? For Cayce, preparation for Jesus' return begins in the now. In every act of forgiveness, in every choice of compassion, in every renunciation of the ego. He said that Jesus will return first in the invisible, in the depths of those who decide to elevate themselves. But he also hinted that one day this reunion could be literal, perhaps with another body, perhaps with the same one. But the important thing, according to him, is that Jesus' soul never abandoned us. It is lurking, awaiting the call. The possibility that Jesus is a cosmic being expands the idea of redemption to a universal scale. He would not only save humanity, but also help Earth reconnect with the network of conscious worlds. A planet in pain, healed by an envoy of light. And if he came from another planet, perhaps he wasn't the only one. Perhaps we are being watched with love and hope, awaiting the moment when, united, we can welcome him back. Ultimately, Jesus' return isn't a date, it's a state of mind. It's the moment humanity decides to put aside fear and embrace the truth. And when that happens, whether in heaven or in our hearts, he will be there. Because although he was never one of us, he was always for us. And now that you've heard all this, could it be that Jesus has already returned but most people haven't recognized him yet? Or is he about to manifest himself in a way we've never imagined? What do you think? Did Jesus' soul really come from another world? Or is this all just symbolic? Your opinion is essential for this collective awakening. Write in the comments, is he already among us? Or, will we still recognize him? If this video touched your heart and made you see Jesus in a way no one has ever shown you, then share with whoever needs to hear this and subscribe on the channel. Together we will spread this light to those still in darkness. Here you will always find wisdom, courage, and faith, even when everything seems meaningless. Because the truth, when it arrives, transforms everything.